Hello, my name is Alexei, and this is my theory of everything from relativity to infinity. So this is basically a creation of 9 books that I've written. And the first one is called Your Influence in Space. And basically we introduce sensory evolution. We show that the speed of light is a limitation to human perception. We discuss how the perceived energy is relative to your inertial reference frame. We then introduced the light state theory, which was on display at the Smithsonian's Air and Space Museum in 2015. The second book is called The Liquid Light State Universe, where we introduce the magic sphere. We also show how matter is the overlapping of incoming electromagnetism from the scaled wave nature of the now. We then introduce the mind, body, and spirit diagrams, calculate a theoretical size for consciousness, and we show the only way that you can have a constant conscious crunching and space preparation is if we are accelerating at light speed towards the center of time. So this introduces the concept of conscious and spiritual gravities with calculations. We then introduce the crystal of time. The crystal of time then shows us that we live in habitable zones of perception within a black hole related to acceleration towards center at light speed. This goes into the subatomic Goldilocks paradox, the source of the Big Bang, and how vibrational harmony determines our motion. And we get our greatest inertial reference frame from the greatest orbit of experiences. Time atom then puts you in the center of time, and we design time atoms. And time atoms are basically conscious sets. We then design the table of perceivable universes. We introduce the concept of clusters of conscious creation. We determine the orbital rate and diameter of each conscious harmonic within our brain. Then using light state theory, we design an interdimensional telescope, which is currently patent pending. The fifth dimension shows how matter, light, and sound emerge from the overlapping of one half past and one half future as we orbit the center of time. We then map the circadian rhythm through our daily orbit as we drift in and drift out. We design interdimensional technologies. We see how consciousness gains harmonics of experience as the raw fluid of creation drifts in and away from the center of all moments. We see that we are the water of the 6th dimension and fluid of time for the 1/6 dimension. The stars are literally in inches away in the dimension of conscious density. The physics of love, synchronicity, then goes into explaining the differences between laminar and turbulent flows of the fluid of creation to begin with, spirals of spatial fluid created by distortions of mind, body, and spirit act as habitats. Consciousness evolves quickly in laminar flows as the energy drifts inwards. Time dilations exist between realms of creation. Thought forms from less dense realms influence the pacing motions of denser realms. We create habitats with our postures for beings to evolve within. Magnetic vortices with the proper ratio will harmonize conscious dimensions. Mind, the shifter and reorganizer of nodes, then shows that before the raw energy of creation enters our physical world, it first passes through all the realms of the lower verse. Conscious perception is controlled by tidally locked fluids of the 5th dimension. We discuss the best times for prayer as our turning points within conscious density are 12:45 a.m. and 12:45 p.m. All pacing motions are a result of the original mind. Body, the mind spaceship, shows how matter, sound, light, and magnetism emerge from the primal vortex. All evolved senses stem from the rotation of Earth, the sun, and our greatest inertial reference frame of infinity. Holding postures of delusion will cause our bodies to misalign with the natural flows of space. All physical experiences are secondary to the already existing flows of space before the evolved body was ever conceived. Spirit, the vortex of creation, relates the circadian rhythm to the precessional cycle of Earth. We compare the ages of zodiac, yugas, and the law of one cycles to the circadian rhythm. We see that the tidally locked fluid of the primary vortex creates various conscious experiences. Experiences of all sizes are guided by the tidally locked vortex, creating local spheres of influence stemming from 0 to infinity. This guides all structures, from the hydrogen atom to the precession of the Earth. So the very first thing is sensory evolution. And from evolving on Earth, we get the senses of feel, taste, and smell. From evolving around the sun, we get the sense of vision. Our eyes are tuned to yellow, which is the black body radiation of the sun. From our greatest inertial reference frame, we get the sense of time and expansion of the universe. All relative experiences are determined by your relative frame of motion. This includes position, velocity, and acceleration. The Doppler shift. The same wave may be experienced in several different ways. It really depends on your velocity, and it depends on your inertial reference frame. Is the universe expanding, or is perception being stretched and crunched based on our inertial frame within time? So this is a light state. The universe then could be considered being made of liquid light, where matter manifests of incoming nodes. So the universe is made of liquid light. This creates nodes of relative manifesting matter within our 4D experience of X, Y, Z, and T. The experience of this field is directly related to your inertial reference frame. From here, we have the magic squares and the harmony of 0 itself. So what we have on the top left is just a generic incoming light state for a square volume. And from a perspective outside of that, it can look like X inside and outside. But in reality, it's a creation of a variation of numbers, which is why on the bottom example, you'll see that you have all the outside numbers equal 34. Any diagonal, any horizontal, any vertical, all four corner sets, cross corner sets, all numbers add up to 34. And so in essence of this sphere, it equals a 34. But if you were inside of it, you would see all of the different wave patterns that exist, creating that leftover frequency. So here you have the mind, body, and spirit diagram. And you can see that you have the magic square can be turned into a magic sphere. And you can create what we call the mind, body, spirit diagram. Pacing motions are caused by distortions of mind, body, or spirit. And just very simple, you could say that a body or any type of structure not undergoing a thought would be perfectly at its center point. But then you have an outside thought comes into play, which creates a shifted node, right? It's a manifestation potential. It's gravity of all three, mind, body, and spirit, causes the pacing motions of our lives. Mind could be considered all conscious projections. Body would be anything physical, and spirit would be the current light state harmony relative to the incoming and outgoing light state. So from this view, you're able to create the longest theoretical wave perceivable. Now, on average, the human takes a picture of reality 60 times in a second. The speed of light is 3 times 10 to the 8 meters per second. This implies that the longest standing wave that can actually exist within our conscious sphere is 1 times 10 to the 7 meters. It's just the longest wave that can just naturally exist within your conscious sphere. So what you have on the bottom of the left is incoming light, the crunching of light in the conscious now. And then what you have on the bottom right is the preparation of light in the conscious future. And the only way this is achievable to have a constant crunching and constant preparation is if we are accelerating at the speed of light. So that leads into the subatomic Goldilocks paradox. where we see that everything is in a state of orbit and rotation. And so then what would be the boundary condition for light and matter to exist? And we have on the top right here, we have the spiral of your acceleration equal to the speed of light associated with changing v. So as your tangential velocity decreases, we would slowly drift inward along the habitable spiral of perception, and the universe would appear to be expanding. This is what implies that we're in a black hole. And so from that, you can make the crystal of time, and you can think about the moment of the Big Bang. And the easiest way to think of it is that you could say that time already existed, and then the universe entered. And when it first entered, you could say right here, this is the moment of the Big Bang. But the energy was not in a habitable zone, a habitable spiral of perception in order to have matter and light. And there's a lot of information on this drawing, but the important takeaway is that you have the moment of the Big Bang, which is the moment the universe collides with time, and you have habitable zones of experience that are related to the thickness of your experience. So you basically get distinct habitable zones related to your current position and inertial reference frame. As distance from center decreases, so as you get closer to center, the fundamental gravitational pull increases. Experiences become more dense. Perception of the universe expands. And so here we've created event field densities, and you can see that they become more dense as you get closer to the center of time. So you could say that the brain, the human brain, is more of a receiver of scaled waveforms being crunched in from the greater now. Each conscious harmonic would then be tuned to an orbit or pendulating motion of this fifth dimension. So what would be the diameter of a 1.25 hertz delta wave? So by using A equal to V squared over R equal to C, you can then basically just do some simple math and see that. So on the bottom right here, you have the longest standing wave perceivable, which we just got from the liquid light state universe, conscious snapshot times speed of light. On the bottom left, what we've done is get our longest brain wave, which is our longest mode of conscious experience, and we've wrapped it around the center of time. Those diameters matched perfectly to be 1 times 10 to the 7 meters. So this implies that our delta verse, the conscious co-creation of raw energy of the deltaverse may exist at a radius of 5 times 10 to the 6 meters. So each one of your conscious waves are tuned to a scaled waveform that's being crunched in from the greater now. From that, you're able to create the table of perceivable universes. What we have is universe on the left. Our normal universe is delta to fast gamma. Anything faster than fast gamma, I would call the noviverse, and anything slower than delta, we would call the lower verse. And these have everything to do with orbits within time. And so based off A equal to V squared over R, we're able to create cloud diameters for each of our conscious harmonics. And we're able to theorize on the next conscious harmonic that will be coming into human experience. It's called the Aliverse or omega wave. And it would have a harmonic frequency of 160 hertz. So from the liquid light state universe, you can see you have your magic sphere here that has your mind, body, and spirit antenna. And this biggest ring would be related to the delta wave. When you activate the 4 interior rings, you've now activated the theta wave. If you continue this fractal pattern of putting your big sphere inside of one of those small, you then activate your alpha, your beta, your slow gamma, and your fast gamma. And you can continue to reach different thicknesses of conscious experience. And so another way to think of it is that when the universe collided with time, it fractaled out into the spectrum of experiences. And so from that, you're able to actually create an interdimensional telescope where you can harmonize the beta state of conscious creation to a denser or less dense realm of experience. And so what we have on the top right is what a normal dimension would look like. And then we have one with puffed out space, and that would shift us towards the Noviverse. And one way you can do that is by creating a 25-mile long tunnel that will literally stretch space and twist it in order to have, say, your betaverse match with the Aliverse. And from there, you can see the layering of conscious types and conscious modes that exist within the fluid of time itself. Less dense and more dense realms, all overlapping. We live in the universe. Denser is the Noviverse. Less dense is the lower verse. This is a patent pending interdimensional telescope. So from our greatest inertial reference frame, you could say that we're right here, and we're orbiting tangentially, but we have an acceleration towards center at light speed while flying tangential. So in the future, you would see energy between you and the center of time being crunched, creating matter, and then energy stretching, that's further from time, and that would be creating light. Then in the past, this raw fluid returns back to normal because it's all about perceiving a fluid within our inertial reference frame. And so you could say that energy in the past that's in a less dense realm is being crunched to you, creating matter, and that energy between you and the center time is then stretching away. In essence, matter from below returns as light from above. Light from above returns as matter from below. So each one of these spheres relates to the amounts of bits of information relative to each layer. So if your delta wave has 1 bit of information, then you could pack 64 theta waves into it. And that's based off of the diameters of orbits within a black hole. And so then you could say that your alpha has 64 times for every beta, and then you get 64 betas for every alpha. And that fractal nature continues inward to infinity. And so by understanding that consciousness is primary and that each one of our conscious waves is tuned to a specific orbital rate and distance from this greatest center of all moments, you can actually physically map out the circadian rhythm within this vortex. And what you see is we have essentially a big loop of perception followed by a tight loop of perception, right? And so you could say if we're starting here at midnight and we're drifting inwards, at 2:30 a.m., we hit the theta field. And then as we drift inward, we eventually hit the alpha field. And then we do a tight orbit in here and we come back out. And all these motions are controlled by tidally locked spheres of the 5th dimension. And that's what shows us that our consciousness is like a gyroscope hanging on a string at a 90-degree angle, because this motion stems from the primary vortex of creation. And so just to kind of show here more in a physical sense, you could say that the delta wave would be tuned to this big red ring. Then when you hit the theta waves, you're actually now tuned to these smaller rings. And this is a deep sleep state, and this is a dream state. Then when the energy hits your alpha wave, you're actually awake, and you're with the human body, so everything's physical in an alpha wave, and same with the beta wave. So this is our physical experience, and this is our dream experience. Experiences of matter, light, and sound are all relative. Matter on matter does not change within our dimension. Consciousness on matter does change. Tools do not detect conscious densities of spacetime. And so what you can see is that there exist virtual walls of information at each of the orbital distances. And based off of your maximum conscious harmonic is what layer you're actually tuned to. And so you get matter and light from the denser realms as well as the less dense realms, and the two overlap to create the now moment, which is then perceived by the consciousness or the brain tuning. And so by using the opposite of our warped geometry factor as we orbit the center of all moments, we can create interdimensional geometries. This would look like a square, a cube, within the fifth dimension. And so one thing to note is that we're actually born into flows of space, of mind, body, and spirit to begin with. And so depending on which culture you're born into is what distortions you will have within your mind, body, and spirit diagram. Cultural delusions create pacing motions that are not natural within your creation. They cause misalignments with conscious fields. They cause you to spiral into delusions. Maintained postures of delusion will cause your ego or light state harmony to solidify. Vortices of mind, body, and spirit create habitats for beings to evolve within. Time dilations exist between realms, meaning in a denser vortice, there's more time than in a less dense vortice. Jinn, tulpa, and demons may evolve within maintained postures of delusions. UAP come from denser realms. To remove these spirals of delusion, we need to connect with the natural flows of spacetime, the rising and setting of the sun. This leads to interdimensional alignments and understanding why some people are more lucid in their dreams and others, and also realms of conscious experience. Reincarnation memories. Someone who reaches their zero will have more of a golden chain as opposed to someone who does not reach their zero throughout their lifetime. This would act like a rusty wire, unable to pass information through the densities of experience. Someone who returns to zero will act like a golden wire, able to pass information through the densities of experience. As energy drifts towards the center of time, we see experiences become more dense. This implies that our next brain harmonic, through evolution, will be near 160 hertz in the brain. Thought forms from less dense realms drift inward. We only perceive the physical world in an alpha, beta, or slow gamma state of brain harmony. This means that the energy goes through the lower verse before entering our universe. Matter from below returns as light from above, while light from below returns as matter from above. We have a consciousness accelerating towards center at light speed, and all experiences emerge from that. It's an overlapping of one half past and one half future, overlapping to create a now moment, all relative to your current position, as projections of mind synchronize to create a fluid experience. Matter, light, sound, and magnetism all emerge from the primary vortex, one half past plus one half future overlapping to create a now moment. Tidal locking of conscious spheres. So this could be considered the primal vortex of all creation. All experiences emerge physically from the primal vortex of creation. Well, what created this? Well, maybe God said, or thought, or showed ego. Either way, there exist local spheres of influence. So you could say this red section would have its local spheres of influence. The yellow section would have local spheres of influence. The green section would have local spheres of influence, and same with the atomic section. And all physical experiences emerge from this primary vortex. And in a physical sense, you could say that they're linked to the local spheres of conscious perception. All spiraling of fluid is related to an inward spiral related to the Fibonacci sequence and golden ratio. Everything from atomic structures, which would be all the way near zero at the center here, to the circadian rhythm, to the precession of the Earth. Each one of these systems has local spheres of influence that orbit with a 1 to 2 to 4 to 8 relationship. So relating to the circadian rhythm, you could say at midnight that all of our 4 local spheres are in a perfect line, and our conscious center is in the red, meaning it's in the delta wave experience. As this fluid rotates above, it also rotates below. So you could see that for every 1 time this red sphere orbits, the yellow sphere orbits 2 times, the green sphere orbits 4 times, and the blue sphere orbits 8 times. And so now we're doing an orbit of 24 hours within our day, and we're going to relate that to the circadian rhythm. And every single one of these represents an hour and a half or 22.5 degrees of rotation done by the red sphere. And you can see as the system rotates that our center of, in quotes, mass of the spheres is what determines our maximum conscious harmonic. So here you can see around 2:30, we jump into the theta wave harmony of human experience. Around 4:30, we go into the alpha wave. And then here we have another, we're still in the alpha wave, and this is 6 a.m. And I want you to take note real quick of these 3 center spheres and these 4 outer spheres. So at midnight, they're all in a line on the left side. At 6 a.m., we've got the blue and the green on the left, the yellow on the right, and the red at bottom of the clock. So as the system continues to orbit, you'll see that as we approach noon, our center of influence enters the beta state, 7:30 a.m., we enter the beta state of conscious experience. Then as the system of tidally locked spheres continues to orbit, you'll see that our experience, our conscious experience, is related to the center of mass of this tidally locked vortex. And so here we have 10:30 a.m., we're still in the blue. But notice this next step. As these spheres continue to rotate around, you'll see that the only difference between midnight and noon is the location of the red sphere. So at noon, the red sphere is on the far right, whereas in midnight, the red sphere is on the far left. And so this is why we get a little groggy during the day, is because our center of experience drifts back out towards alpha, but doesn't make it all the way back to delta. And so the red sphere is over here. And so the center of mass is still over here. And so basically, as this red sphere continues to orbit through, you'll see that our experience orbits back through in a tight loop. And then the only difference between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. is that red sphere. So here you can see 6 a.m., right? So these two are in a line. Yellow's over here, red's on the bottom. 6 p.m., these two are in a line. Red sphere's on the top, and the yellow sphere's over here. And as the tidally locked vortex continues to rotate, you see that our center of influence travels back outward. And so we jump from the green, the alpha state, back into a theta state around 10:30 p.m. And then this process happens again, where we have these 4 local spheres constantly rotating, causing the circadian rhythm to awaken and to sleep. Now, earlier we mentioned how this same vortex controls all experiences. And so what we've done here is actually relate this to the precession of the Earth and the zodiac and yuga systems. So you can see that as Let me go back one real quick. So this tidally locked fluid, you can, for any conscious mode, the biggest sphere of orbit would relate to the time. So for us, for a human, it's a 24-hour orbit. For the Earth, it's a 25,920-year orbit. And so you can have your full 4 local spheres of Earth consciousness as well. And so when you relate just the orbiting of 4 local spheres that are tidally locked, that controls all structures, from atomic energies all the way to human circadian rhythm, to the precession of the Earth, to, you could even say, galactic consciousness. And so here you see the different ages. And what's interesting is that the Yuga system has the Sat Yugas. They call them Sat in and Sat out because it relates to drifting towards and away from that greatest conscious center. And when you map the circadian rhythm around this system, you see how the different systems align. So the center point between Sat in and Sat out could be directly related to our beta in, beta out. What we've done here, though, is add a section of alpha mid, which represents that dipping, but not falling all the way back into sleep, and then emerging back into the faster harmonics. And in the zodiac wheel, they basically have divided that into 12 equal sections of 2,160 years each. But what's really interesting is how Dwapara Yuga transition into Tetra Yuga is highlighted by the transition from Pisces into Aquarius, which is also highlighted by the law of one of a transference from yellow ray energy centers into green ray energy centers. And so you could say this is the modes of Earth consciousness as we orbit. We're in the Kali Yugas over here. As we drift inwards, we hit the Dwapara Yuga. Continue to hit inwards, we hit the Tetra Yuga. Continue to drift inwards, we hit Sat, but then we drift back out, hit the Tetra Yuga, back into Satya Yuga, and then we go back out through the Tetra out, Dwapara out, Kali out, switches over, Kali in, Dwapara in, Tetra in, Sat in. So the in and out motion of conscious experience is directly related to the human circadian rhythm. And so this just shows the primal vortex of all creation and shows how we have these different fields of energy that we run into. Currently, on the part of the wheel, we're in transition from Pisces to Aquarius, which is the same as the transition from Dwapara Yuga to Tetra Yuga, which is the same transition as yellow ray energy centers into green ray energy centers. So currently, within human experience and Earth experience, we are between the yellow and green energy systems. This photo on the top right basically shows how all of those experiences are tidally locked within the greatest vortex of all moments. And this image on the bottom right just shows how all experiences have their 4 local spheres of influence. And so you could say that here you have it. Here's your vortex of tidally locked fluid, all related to the Fibonacci sequence or golden ratio times Planck constant. And so you have your atomic tunings have 4 local spheres. Human tunings have 4 local spheres. Earth tunings have 4 local spheres. And galactic tunings have 4 local spheres. And you can just make your biggest sphere, the red sphere, related to the biggest orbit. So 25,920 years becomes the red sphere for the Earth. 12,960 years becomes the yellow sphere. 5,000 years becomes the green sphere, and 2,500 becomes the blue sphere. For humans, red sphere is 24 hours, yellow sphere is 12 hours, green sphere is 6, and blue sphere is 3. And so as those systems rotate, physical experiences are manifested. So in short, spirit is primary, everything else is secondary. Thanks for your time, or rather experience.